It's remarkable how powerful non-verbal cues are.
Yeah.
Usually when I meet someone in person, I can really suss out the vibes pretty early on. Just like, are we gonna click? Is the chemistry there? Like you get answers to all the questions immediately. And so if you decide to like pursue and like ask them out or anything like that, it's just with so much more conviction.
Yeah, totally. Dating is hard, and it all starts with the first date.
Today, we're gonna talk about all things related to first date experiences. Let's get into it. How are you doing today?
Good.
You got a straight face, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
No, that's just how I'm feeling today. I'm just
Wow.
bringing a lot of
huge.
joy, humor, energy into this.
I love that.
Yeah.
We can cut that together, yeah.
Yeah. How you feeling today, dude?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, I think I'm a little tired end today. Like maybe 6s across the board. I think
Mhm.
physically 6, emotionally also 6. Predominant emotion. Pretty zen, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah. Feeling it pretty at peace.
Nice. I think I'm at emotionally like a 7, physically 6.5. I think right now my one of the dominant emotions is impatience because I am going to a gala right after this.
It's true.
So I wish we had more time to give this glorious topic the time it really deserves. But
There's something ironic about that.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
But in a bit of a hurry. So this is going to be a compacted version of this. And the rest of the topic will have to wait for another time. Yeah.
There's a joke in there somewhere about the topic, but please, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about first dates.
Yeah, in a hurry, gotta run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to, just trying to get to the good stuff as quickly as possible.
So bad. Yeah. I mean, on the note of like, we talk a lot about connecting like between ourselves and the friends.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting topic to just consider what our experiences have been like connecting with strangers.
Yeah.
And specifically in a romantic context.
Right.
For the first time, which is a whole thing.
Right.
In and of itself.
Should we provide a bit of background on our like dating experience and our age for people to have some context here?
Sure. I am 29 this year. I have been, I think the first time I was on a dating app, I was like 23, 24.
Whoa.
And then I was on the apps for maybe like a year and a half before COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And that just went away. And then I was kind of off and then dated. And then really it's been like 3-ish years now since I've been on them. And yeah, I just started up again like maybe like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am very curious to know how you're feeling about that, but I'll give my background first to make it a little more symmetrical here.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I'm 32, which is a weird number to look at every time I look at it. My first time on apps would have been, this would have been like 4 years ago. So I would have been 28. So I started a little bit late from being in a series of very long relationships.
I thought I was late. Yeah.
Yeah, the way I started on dating apps was very unusual in that I was in an open relationship and going on apps the first time in an open relationship, very weird.
Wow.
But I think it's going to be mostly a story for another day because I think that talking about monogamy and non-monogamy is like a whole topic unto itself that would be fascinating.
Right.
But since then, I've probably been on somewhere between like, I've definitely lost count of the number of first dates I've been on. If I had to guess, I would say probably like 45-ish.
Right.
First dates. That's probably an underestimate. Something in that range though. And it's been predominantly in San Francisco, with like a handful in New York and in Hong Kong. And I think I'm missing a few random ones during travel, but I'm blanking on those at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the hundreds. This is for longtime listeners, you'll know that this is back in a time when I was very much dark energy, straight to the deep end kind of motivation mindset. So the first time getting on dating apps, I was like, I'm gonna do this like as seriously and as intensely as I possibly can. Just
Seriously, you're meaning a different thing than serious relationship.
This is true. This is true. I was definitely in an exploratory phase after not having dated in high school because I was like focused on school. And then university was kind of a similar flavor, although with much more flavors of existentialism. And what am I doing with my life? I need a job. I need to keep up with everybody. And I also need to pass school and get a good job. Didn't have time for that. It was basically after I graduated. I was like, oh, finally, some space to explore.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really went into the deep end. I think, yeah, I'm north of 200, I think I would say, in terms of first dates. Mostly, I would say during that first year and a half, where it was just like, I don't know, this feels kind of bad to think about, but basically it was kind of like deprived for a very long time. And then I was like, oh wow, I can like meet all of these people. That plus extrovert energy, plus the deep end tendencies was just like, whew.
Perfect storm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was, even now looking back, I'm like, wow, what was I doing? Just like, it was exhausting.
Yeah.
As you may imagine, even for an extrovert. Like, yeah, because then I was roughly meeting like probably on average, 3 new people a week.
That's absolutely wild to me.
Yeah, this is on top of having a full-time job and having hobbies and stuff. And yeah, it was fun, but it was also a lot of social energy. And what I now know to be emotional energy, just like investing in new people, like really trying to connect with them, that takes a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've calmed down significantly.
Yes, can
since
confirm.
then. Yeah, I don't know what I've only been on for 2 weeks, and I think I've been on 0 dates so far. So yeah. I don't know. Not enough data points, but
yeah. So I'm guessing it seems like based on the 3 week and now looking for something a little bit different, that your perspective towards dating has changed a lot. So like, what do you think has shifted? Do you think that's like a 20s versus entering 30s situation? Or do you think that's just like an emotional growth change for you?
I think so. I mean, for me, the biggest bit shift is just that I got over commitment issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in my early 20s, I was in not really analysis paralysis land, but just like, to one of our previous episodes, just like afraid of being vulnerable and afraid of opening up to somebody. And we talked about it in previous episodes now, just like to be vulnerable is to give other people the opportunity or the tools to be able to hurt you.
Yeah.
And I was really not trying to get hurt.
Right.
At all. So yeah, but at the same time, part of me really did want to, like, had a hunger for connecting with people. And like, you can imagine the intimacy is like it's probably on the spectrum of connection, it's probably like the most intense way that you could connect with somebody. So there was definitely a part of me that wanted to that level of closeness, like even independent of the physical stuff, just like to be able to have that connection, to be in love with somebody, to have somebody there for you, for you, with you, like a companion that you can share everything with. Like that still sounds really nice.
Yeah.
And even back then, I think part of me was like, yeah, I really want that. But there was this huge barrier in the way of commitment issues. So yeah, that has now gone away. And so now I've taken the leap a few times now, emerged with many scars, but I think I am better for it.
Yeah.
And I'm proud that I pushed myself to get there because it was non-trivial. For sure. Very scary. Yeah, you were there for most of these ups and downs.
So. I got the play-by-play.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest change for me.
Yeah.
On my side. But yeah, I feel like you've been there though since the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of had cycles of the opposite journey where like most of my time in high school and in early college was in extended relationships. So from the end of high school into the start of college was in like a 4-year relationship, and then end of college until the first many years of post-graduation life. It's a 5.5-year relationship. So it meant that like a lot of my formative years were in the context of relationships. And it's only really been in the year since then that I've really learned how to be single and to distribute like my emotional needs onto, honestly, partially myself, but also onto friends and family in a way that was not as concentrated into one person. But
not codependent.
Yeah, not codependent. Exactly. But because of that, and I think that after the end of that relationship, my perspective towards what I was looking for changed a lot. Like I think initially I was just like, all right, I just kind of want to have like right after the relationship, honestly, I was like, I want to find life partner immediately. And then I think life kind of came and told me like, that's not how that works. Like you just got out of a very serious relationship. You are reorienting yourself in the world. You can't just like jump into something like that. It's not going to work. There's a lot of figuring out what you want. You have to do first. So I went through a period after that of, I'm just like, I don't really want a serious thing right now. I knew that I needed a lot of latitude to explore, and that I knew myself well enough to know that if I found a relationship that I was really invested in, I would happily sacrifice like so many other ambitions that I have. So for that period, I was like, I really craved connection, just like you said. So I still wanted to date, but was just not interested in trying to find like life partner for long chunks of that. And then you stack on top of that many of those years was COVID, which during COVID especially, it was like, I'm not trying to have a pen pal during this period. I'd rather just like invest that time in friends if I'm just talking. There's no like more serious intimacy building. And like, I just knew that I would not be able to actually figure out real compatibility through conversation. I needed to have more time spent with the person, that it was just totally impractical. So that was like most of my actual dating experience has been in the last like 3 or 4 years. And I'm just now kind of coming back to a place of being open to dating like really seriously, like being open to the idea of finding a life partner. But it definitely was not just like I got to the point where I was comfortable with commitment and then stayed there. It's that life circumstance shifted me back and forth with how open I was. And I'd say it's only really in the last like month that I've been like, okay, you know what? I'm actually open to trying to find a life partner right now. Which is, real different than dating to just like find someone to hang out with for a while and have fun with.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my arc is kind of more linear, I would say, where I think I got to the point where I could try committing for real, like this last year and a half maybe, and then got out of a, for me, pretty serious thing at the end of last year, and then I've been on the mend for like many months, and I've also just kind of started peeping out of my shell again. But yeah, I think for me, ever since that bit flipped, I think I've been in life partner looking mode since then too. But yeah, as life will have it though, like I'm about to now travel.
You're gonna exactly. So I think you're gonna feel that ebb in the other direction.
Exactly, which is, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that.
Right.
But part of me is just like, okay, let's settle down and commit. The other part of me is like, go explore. Yeah, but maybe for another day. I think one thing that I've been struggling with that we've talked a bit about as well is dating app culture now is just like so pervasive in today's, just how dating works, I guess, in 2023. Actually, quick side tangent. Like, when was the last time you went on a date with someone where you didn't meet them off of a dating app?
Very recently.
Oh.
Although, admittedly, for the first date, they did not recognize that it was a date, despite the fact that I was as explicit as you could possibly be without literally saying the word date. Like I framed it as, would you like to get a drink with me tonight, just the two of us? And apparently, and it was a Friday night, and apparently that did not register as date. After that, we went on a date that was like explicitly like, I'm asking for a date. And she's like, okay,
Right.
I'm following this time.
Nice. That's very endearing.
But yeah, that was just meeting in person. Like met her at an event here actually. And then we took the same bus home. So I was like, okay, well now is my chance to strike up conversation. But aside from that, it's usually like mutual friend introductions.
Nice.
But still, definitely the majority of the dates that I've been on have definitely been through apps.
Yeah.
It's like 90+%.
Yeah, I can't remember for me. I mean, yeah, it's probably at least a year ago. Yeah, that checks out. Probably like a year ago. But even then, it was kind of like a reconnect with someone I hadn't seen since high school. So, yeah. But, yeah.
So, I mean, there's like all these steps in this process now where there's like a lot to emotionally like work through. So, like one thing that we've talked a bit about, but never on the pod, I think, is just like managing expectations when it comes into going into first date. Because like there's, sometimes it can be hard to show up with the right energy to get into a playful state with someone if you're not excited about it. Yeah. But also like the more excited you get about it, the easier it is to be disappointed and end up feeling a little bit burned at the end of it.
100%.
So like how do you manage that now?
That's the question I was going to ask you.
Yeah. That's okay. Well, we can both answer.
But I think, I mean, for me, the flavor of this is I feel like in society, like generally speaking in the dating process, the guy is the initiator, at least, gender norms wise. And for me, in order to tap into that, I generally need that sense of excitement about the person. That's what fuels my like, that's where like the flirting energy comes from. That's where like, the desire to like, be funny and escalate and like, ask people out to drinks and stuff like that. That like, it all comes from being like, whoa, I think this person's interesting. I think they're exciting. We'd love to get to know them a little more and see where this goes. That kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate part is exactly like you said, like sometimes you get excited about a person and then for reasons it ends up, not working out, or like you like misread the vibe and you're like, that's kind of a bummer. And you inevitably experience this drop moment of just like disappointment. And it's never, for at least my experience, most of the time, it's not like anyone's fault. It just is actually like this isn't really, the chemistry isn't really quite there, or like the clicking isn't really quite there, or like the interests aren't really quite there. Or even when they are, sometimes it's like we're both interested in the same thing, but for very different reasons. And then it's also kind of like a miss.
Yeah, totally.
So there could be so many things, and it's not to like call anybody out, but inevitably that tends to happen a lot, and it's pretty exhausting, I find. So that's kind of why it comes up for me. I think one thing that we've talked about is just kind of trying to keep it neutral. In those kind of early interactions, I try to also just space it out. I think there's something that I've experienced as well, which is like just dating app fatigue.
Totally.
Basically, which is kind of just an extension of this idea of emotional energy and capacity and then how that can be drained. I do think that like I have experienced before like this like frustration of like just having been on dating apps for too long. There comes a point where I catch myself being a little like snappy or impatient. Like, why isn't this person putting like more like effort into this conversation? Like things like that. And that's when usually I now know that, okay, hold on. You just met this person. It's probably not them.
Right.
So maybe you should, I think you're just like emotionally spent from trying to connect with all these different people at kind of the same time. And so now I also kind of have these muscles now where, okay, I need to like just take a break from the app, weeks, months, and then come back.
Yeah.
But that's kind of it. It's very crude. So I'm curious like how you kind of approach as well.
Yeah, I think that over time from just going on a lot of first dates, I've just come to recognize that basically all of the signal about a person before you actually meet them is like irrelevant. So in the early conversations with someone now online, all I'm really trying to do is suss out whether or not we can have one really good conversation. If there's like some kind of material that is going to have enough interesting common ground to discuss, that even if the connection is not there, I'm still going to feel like, oh, this is
Interesting.
interesting. I'm glad I did this just for the conversation's sake.
Right.
So sometimes it's something in the profile where I'm like, that's a really interesting, weird experience. I want to know more about that. Or sometimes it's something that they'll ask me about, and they're curious about some part of my background that I have a lot to say about. And usually as soon as we hit that point in the conversation, I'll be like, it sounds like we'd have like more than enough to talk about in person. Like, would you like to meet up?
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a very endearing line.
Yeah. It has so far landed well 100% of the time.
Yeah, I don't see why I wouldn't. Yeah. It seems great.
And then when we actually meet in person, I usually like tells me a lot very quickly. Like sometimes you just know quickly that the attraction just isn't there. Sometimes you know immediately that the emotional chemistry just isn't quite there. Be like, I'm like physically attracted to this person, but I just like really don't feel at ease around them, and I think they don't really feel at ease around me. So it just doesn't feel quite right. And usually in those situations, I'll just be like, all right, well, let's go have this one conversation that I want to talk about, because I do genuinely like learning about people's histories and the things that are important to them.
Yeah,
I think it's really interesting. And then on the very, very rare occasion where I meet up with someone and like the first like 2 minutes, I'm like, this is not it. Then I'll just like, I've only done this once or twice where I'll be like, thanks for coming out, but like this is not. I think this is like not the right kind of connection for me.
Wow. You've done that first 2 minutes?
Not first 2 minutes. I think I did it after like going to a bar one time. I got one drink. I downed my drink in like 15 minutes, and then I was like, I think I'm kind of tired. I'm going to head home. And then I think that the other person just got the same read. Yeah.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, I don't think I've ever cut a date short that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I have, but it's like the shortest I've ever cut it is like an hour.
Yeah. I mean, you're remarkably good at carrying conversations. So like, I don't know if I've ever seen you in a situation where someone is difficult to talk with and you just like, you can't figure out how to make it work.
That's true.
I think you might find situations where it's not fun for you.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think that you've always found ways to make the conversation like flow.
Yeah, I've definitely hit, thank you. I've hit points where it is exhausting.
Right.
Yeah, because I know how to do it. I can literally talk to myself without making it seem like I'm talking to myself. Because like I'll say something about framing. Myself, and then I'll ask them about themselves. They'll answer, and then the really bad conversationalists just end there,
right? And
like don't try to bring up another topic, or they don't ask me about anything, and I can then fill in that blank for them.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
it's like you drop the breadcrumbs and then you pick up your own breadcrumbs.
Exactly. It's, I guess maybe it's a skill. Like they'll answer something and they'll like, oh yeah, like that makes me, like I'll comment a bit about what they're talking about, what's interesting about that. And then I'll also make the leap for them about me, like, oh, like this other thing.
Yeah.
And then it's just me talking to myself and asking them questions.
Yeah.
But there's that way to like force and truly carry a conversation, but it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Absolutely exhausting.
So I think the situations where I be out really early, it's because I feel that coming up and I just don't have the same kind of like conversational endurance as you do to do the talking to myself via the other person.
Yeah. I mean,
so I'm usually like, I'm
in my mind, I'm just trying to give them a chance.
Yeah.
But yeah, it usually doesn't work out well. Yeah. I think to your point, it's remarkable how powerful nonverbal cues are.
Yeah.
Just usually when I meet someone in person, I can really suss out the vibes pretty early on.
Yeah.
Just like, are we going to click? Is the chemistry there? Like you get answers to all the questions immediately. And so if you decide to like pursue and like ask them out or anything like that, it's just with so much more conviction.
Yeah, totally.
You're like, I already know these things. Like they're, not that I know, but they're like really good leading indicators. And I'm going into this not knowing, but with confidence.
Yeah.
But online, it's just really hard to get that.
It's so hard. Like I've had both directions where I've had people where online, like they're like super witty and funny and just like bantery, but in person they're just like really like reserved and like tensed up. And I've also had the opposite where someone is just like the driest online conversationalist I've ever met.
Oh, yeah.
But then in person they're like super fun,
100%.
high energy, like super inquisitive. So it's just that, like what people are like online is like a really poor indicator.
Yeah, texting just kind of sucks if you can't hear their voice.
Yeah.
You know, and I've learned that some people just don't know how to use emojis.
Oh yeah.
Emojis are so critical when you're meeting someone for the first time and you're trying to make like some jokes, trying to flirt a little bit of banter. Like you gotta give me that like colon P. So that I know you're joking because I might not, and vice versa.
Oh man, Nicole and Pete immediately outing ourselves as millennials.
Yeah, a little bit. But that's what I mean. I think that's how you suss it out. Like they come off as really dry because
totally.
They're writing you literal sentences.
I mean, there's also that some people just hate texting.
That's true.
Or like, from your perspective, you're having this conversation with them. From their perspective, they're trying to find your message in like a wall of 47 people.
That's also another thing. It's just also so rough, I think, on both sides when there's just so many conversations you're trying to keep up in parallel.
Yeah.
It's the, again, like limited emotional bandwidth part. Like I get frustrated sometimes when it feels like people are literally just doing the bare minimum to keep the conversation going and answering my questions and that's it. But I catch myself doing that too sometimes where it's just like, it's because literally there's just like, there's so many and you're like, and they're all early. So you're kind of like, I don't really know what the vibe is for any of these people yet.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to keep it going. Yeah, I don't know. Dating apps are tough.
Yeah.
Going back to one of the earlier points, I think on the topic of first dates and first interactions, I think one thing that I'm trying to figure out is that what you brought up earlier. When you're going in, it's like you don't want to have no expectations. I think, because then for me, it's just not fun if I'm not getting excited about the person, or if I am excited about the person, it's hard for me to force myself to not be excited. And if I'm not excited, then not excited. And then it's not interesting. So yeah, but at the same time, I really don't like this feeling of being like that disappointment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious if you have that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do just go in feeling pretty like low expectations, but open to it unfolding to whatever. Like I think that showing it like with a really pessimistic perspective, I think is unhelpful. But I think it's kind of okay to show up and just view it as like I'm meeting a person for the first time. And I found that even if I show up not like maximum energy, if the connection is right, if the conversation leads us into interesting places, I will get energized throughout that.
Mm.
And like that's actually the thing that will tell me whether things are like working. Is if like our energies like rise together throughout the date. Whereas if you come in really high energy and then like it stays there or like falls slowly over time, it's like hard to know what that even means. Mm. Just like, am I having fun on this date because I'm putting in energy and it's fun? Or is it actually the chemistry that's working?
That's a good one, actually. Yeah. What comes up for me is actually some of the other people-pleasing tendencies that I had before that I talked about. Like in a previous episode, we talked about like integrating this new sense of self-love. Mm-hmm. And one of the domains actually is not rushing to see the good in other people before it truly is revealed. Mm-hmm. And for me, this happens on dates as well, where I kind of like idealize people. And I'm like, oh, this one, like, it might be a glimmer of something good. And in my mind, I'm already, like, blowing it up to be, like, this huge, this person's great for all these reasons. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I think in those situations, then you go in with all of these, like, excited expectations, but it's kind of propped up. And it's, like, not really, I guess, true. And then at that point, like, all you have is to go down. Yeah. As opposed to if you just go in with an open mind, then, like, you have all this opportunity for things to go up.
Right. And I think that regardless of what you go in with, the important thing is just to see things as they are. And I think that's why meeting in person, to be honest, so helpful, because it just helps you really like see what the dynamic really is. And then if it is really good, you let yourself get excited. You like don't protect yourself from excitement. It's just that you allow the reality of the situation to guide your emotional response. So I mean, there were like a few dates, I think a couple of weeks ago, where like I was pretty excited about them going in, and but then as soon as like the first like 5 minutes, just from feeling out our dynamic, I'm like, this is not it. But I'm like,
But interesting conversation to be had here. So my expectations like adjusted there, and they kind of just stayed there the whole time. And I was still open to the idea of potentially them like rising. And I did find for each person there were things that I ended up appreciating about them that I hadn't expected, but it didn't like really shift my overall conviction about whether they would be the kind of person that I would really see something with. So like ultimately the thing that I don't know how you think about this, but the way that I think about this throughout the date is ultimately I'm just trying to decide for myself, would I be sad if I never saw this person again? And like sometimes I have a really strong conviction early on, like I would be really sad if I never saw this person again. And that's like the indicator to me that like, okay, like I want to see this person again. I'm gonna tell them like right at the end that look, this was really fun. I want to see you again. Like I don't know what my schedule is yet, but like I'll find a time. Or sometimes I'll be like, I really want to see you again. When are you free? I'll do it like in person at the end of the date.
Yeah.
Whereas if I don't feel that, if it's really strong, then I'll just be like, so I'm actually still torn on this. I'm curious how you deal with this. At the end of the date, if I'm like pretty sure, if I'm like 99% sure, like I don't want to see this person again, like this has been draining for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a period where I would be really explicit and I'd just be like, hey, like thanks for the walk. This doesn't feel like quite the right thing that I'm looking for, but like it's been great talking to you. More recently, I've actually biased more towards just like saying bye and thanks without specifying, and just like letting the other person kind of take the hint without putting it to them directly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still kind of trying to figure out for myself which one of those things is actually kinder. Like I don't ghost people, but I definitely do this thing where we like mutually ghost, where like at the end of the date, just nobody messages, which to me indicates that there is a mutual understanding that this is done.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. I generally lean into that as well. I find that in dating app culture, I think people are sensitive to that, like normally, especially as like generally speaking, as the guy you're supposed to follow up, or there's like a real general expectation of you following up. And if the girl follows up after the date, it's kind of like almost like something special. So I think that mechanism helps. And yeah, I don't think it's unkind to do that. I think being able to, if they're really excited and there's an asymmetry, still like let them know. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's totally fine over text as well, especially on a first date.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I look for is I actually just kind of feel my way out through it. It's the energy drain thing for me that you were talking about. Like, do I feel net drain or do I feel energized coming out of this? For the first date, I think is my bar. And that really actively dictates if I want to see this person again. Because that basically translates, like, is it a chore being with you?
Yeah, right. Right.
Or am I like better in the energy sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What do you think it is about your dynamic? Or what are some common traits for you that you've noticed about the dynamic that tends to result in you being energized versus drained? And like, what do you usually talk about on first dates?
That's a good question. I think sorry, your first question was how I feel that?
Yeah. Or sorry, let's just do 2 separate questions.
Okay.
First question.
Nice.
What do you talk about on first dates typically?
So I typically now, I used to have this unrealistic expectation of just like, this conversation is going to be amazing right from the get-go.
Yes.
And I used to like judge myself for, we're making small talk. But now I've like learned that it's a gradual ramp is totally fine and actually kind of what you want. So yeah, I think it's the first 5 to 10 minutes usually kind of like some small talk, getting to know them. I usually start with the the basics if we haven't already talked about that online, just like where you from, like what do you do, how did you get here, and rough parts of the story, and then I kind of just roll the dice on during those 10 minutes. Hopefully, some breadcrumbs have emerged that are interesting. If we've had a lengthier conversation online, then I might already have some breadcrumbs in my mind that we didn't get to. And I think that's it. That's the starting set of topics. And then I kind of just in my mind try to listen to my curiosity, and hopefully we strike gold, which is something that we both really resonate with. I think the hallmark of a really good connection, which has only happened to me maybe like 3 times, is I don't know if you've experienced it, but you both say the same thing. Like a recent example of this is someone was like leading up to like, oh, like I got introduced to this anime recently. And then we both said the name of the show at the exact same time.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Yeah.
In a previous date from years ago now, like we both said the same line from the same movie. And you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of moments are like pretty electric. And yeah, I think you're just looking for connection points. Which I think if it's a first date, maybe towards the latter stages, hopefully you're getting to some more deep topics. But I think in the early stages, you're just looking for common ground.
Yeah. Yeah, like that. It's like collecting common ground and breadcrumbs. Like just things where you're like, that's like an interesting thing to inquire about. I'm gonna file that away, and then just build up this interesting set of things where you're like, wow, there's like so much to dig into here.
Yeah, and I think like it's more precisely like common ground in the same magnitude, like the same topics, and you both feel roughly similarly in magnitude about them.
Right.
So I think that translates into you getting excited about the same things,
Mm-hmm.
which ultimately is, I think, what you want. So.
Yeah. I think the things that have typically hit the hardest for me are when it's not just that like we say the same thing, or like we have the same opinion about something. We have like the same fairly unusual opinion about something, or fairly unusual life experience.
Yeah.
Like on one day, I remember feeling very deeply connected. We had like both recently gotten out of long relationships where the end portion of it was poly, which is like was a polyamorous relationship, and that's like a very specific life experience.
Right.
So, I think that finding that kind of uniquely connecting material is really interesting because it helps both of you feel, like not alone, but more importantly, like in community.
Yeah, understood.
Understood in a way that you haven't been able to find elsewhere.
100%.
And like that I think is pretty magical.
Yeah. Shared life. It's really just common ground, I would say. Shared life experiences, shared opinions, shared interests.
But I think it's like those things and like when it's unusual. Because if it's just like, like if someone's like, I too like television, it's like, I don't really know what to do here.
That's true. It's true. That is true. I think it's when you find unexpected common ground.
Right. Because like, for example, for you, I'm guessing it would hit pretty different if someone's like, I love Avatar. You're like, I love Avatar. But if they start quoting specific eye roll lines to you, you're gonna be like,
that hits different. That hits different.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So it's that kind of thing. Like it's like the specificity of the common ground. That's the thing that I think really gets me.
That checks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like one thing. I think the other thing that sparks for me is when people there's like specificity in opinions that I don't necessarily share, but I find like fascinating.
Yes.
So like, if there's like a thing that, if there's something that I have not yet developed like a strong opinion about, but they have like very strong opinions about, or they just know a lot about, like another thing that is amazing to me is if I'm like walking around somewhere in a city, and then the person would like can tell me very specific stories about something that we're on. Like data was just on recently, the other person was like sitting down on a log, and she was like, "Do you know that lichen are actually not one organism; they're multiple?" And I was like, "That is some specific weird knowledge, and it just indicates a lot to me about the person." And it just like it almost feels like a mega breadcrumb. There's like so much
No,
in here.
exactly.
There's like the actual material. There's like
100%.
why were you drawn to this?
Right.
It's just like how did you learn this?
Yeah.
So there's just like so much stuff to look at there.
Because it's an indicator of character value, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're like, wow, where does this character value lead as well?
Yeah.
And now you're
Yeah.
excited about that.
I think I didn't really like identify this until we were talking about it now, but I think that the reason that those weird specific things make it so interesting to me is they are strong indicators of character value because
Yes.
they can't be about like fitting in because they don't
They
help you
don't,
fit.
yeah, exactly.
So it must mean that it's something that's important to you in like a real way.
Right. And then you're like, maybe we have the same value
Yeah.
that led us to the same thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe we maybe like other things as well.
Right.
And I think that's the exciting part. That
Yeah.
there's like, an undiscovered part of the graph.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have more questions, but we might be out of time.
I think sorry folks, if it were not for the gala, I would be sticking around for another 20 minutes minimum on this conversation, but
That's true.
it just means that there'll be more to come in another episode.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna take the limited expectations thing. I think is a good thing to focus on.
Yeah.
Away from this episode, it's almost like just let it be,
Yeah.
Don't put too much pressure on it. Just,
Yeah.
If it happens, it happens.
Exactly. And it's both not like I think that means both not saying this is gonna be amazing and this is definitely gonna be my partner, but it's also not saying like there's no chance, like whatever, I'm just doing this to go through the motions. It's just going and being like, this is going to be what it's going to be, and I will see it clearly.
Nice. Yeah, I think that checks out. Common theme now, I think, across a lot of episodes is this idea of balance.
Yeah.
Where like you don't want to be unexcited. You also don't want to be too excited.
Right.
Kind of wanted to see it for what it is.
Right. I think it's not just about balance. It's like what you just said. It's about seeing things for what they are. It's about seeing the truth.
Wow.
And just accepting the truth.
Amazing.
And then moving through the world with clear eyes.
Wow. It's all coming together. Humility, balance,
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah. Turns out the ancient wisdom, pretty good.
Maybe that's why it's ancient wisdom.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Still around.
Yeah.
Sweet. Cool. Well, how you feeling now as we check out?
Yeah. Definitely felt energy rising. It's almost like I like hanging out with you or something.
Damn. Yeah.
We should hang out again.
Maybe we should do that. Yeah. What an idea.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little jittery again. I'm feeling excited.
Nice.
Feeling like kind of optimistic about dating. Feeling like satisfied with the insight about why the specificity thing is so interesting. And I hadn't really seen clearly before how much it is an indicator of character traits
Mm-hmm.
and why that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think energy-wise, I'm at like emotionally like an 8.5 and physically like a 7.5.
Nice.
Yeah. Where you at?
Yeah, I'm feeling also a little bit of the jittery energy. Yeah, I think I also a little more excited for the future, but it's also weird because I have to like pause in my mind just because I'm about to move around for a few months.
You have to pause looking for a life partner. You don't have to pause dating.
That's true. It'll be interesting definitely to meet some people abroad.
Mhm.
So if I have any interesting stories, y'all will be the first to know. But yeah, no, generally optimistic as well. I think it's always like recharging talking about this kind of stuff, especially with you. And I think, yeah, it's definitely, we talked about the limited emotional capacity. This is definitely a way to recharge it up. So yeah, I'm feeling good about it. I think I'm checking out at 7s across the board. Yeah. Physical 7, emotional 7. Yeah. And yeah, feeling content and optimistic about the future. Yeah, it's all coming together. Self-love. Wow, I'm pretty cool. Maybe I'm just looking for someone that also thinks that has similar character traits and values as me. Yeah. We'll figure it out.
Just got to keep showing up.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you again for tuning in to this episode of Vulnerability Junkies.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
See ya.